All right. So we're about to start something very different and very special and something we've been excited for very, very long. So, guys, this is not a TIS episode that you're watching.
It's
This
not
is
a new format.
It's not a new format. This is a separate review series of one of the most anticipated shows, the universe that the three of us and a lot of people out there are humongous fans of, and that is the Lord of the Rings. And now we have finally on Prime Video the Rings of Power.
Yeah.
तो guys, सबसे पहले बताओ कि तुम कितना excited हो?
नहीं मैं ताली मारा है bro.
No, but before we get into the Rings of Power, right? You guys are Lord of the Rings fans?
No.
Have been. Yeah. बाबा तू तो book पढ़ा है, कौतुक तू भी book पढ़ा है. मैंने book नहीं पढ़ा है, मैंने movies देखा है, right?
मैंने movies भी देखा है लेकिन.
हाँ, मैंने सिर्फ movies देखा है. But the good thing is, for everybody watching, you don't need to have read the previous trilogy, Lord of the Rings trilogy, or have watched the movies to get or understand what is happening in the Rings of Power. Which is
because great. It's not the previous trilogy. It is the future trilogy.
It is the future trilogy, and you're watching the previous one, right? So you're watching the Rings of Power, which is set in the second age of Middle Earth. So for all of you who are wondering, कि यार picture देखूं, book पढ़ूं, no, it's not needed. You can watch this show completely separate from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, correct, and you will still get and understand everything. But that being said, if you have watched the Lord of the Rings, there are just certain things that will touch you more, right? Like when you hear characters like Galadriel, or when you hear about characters like Elrond, or the big guy, the guy everybody wants to defeat, which is the Dark Lord Sauron. So you will get those a little bit more. But other than that, first reaction of watching the Rings of Power was mind is blown.
Yeah. Very much.
Because
eyes are opened like Sauron.
Eyes are open, mind is blown, because the sheer scale of something like this, probably one of the most expensive shows out there, and you can see every penny that has been spent because it is fully out there, like in all its glory.
You know something? So here's what happened with me. Okay, so I started watching Rings of Power on my mobile. And then literally 1 minute in, I was like,
bro, ye to nahi.
This is not doing justice to this at all.
All.
Watched it on the TV right after that. And even then I was like, shit, this should have been on a big screen. This is literally like the closest I've seen to like a movie literally being made, like a high budget, big budget movie. Just
like I think the first 2 episodes we should have been called in a theater to watch, as people who are reviewing this. I think theater mein jo maja aata na, wo episode.
Insane. And all of you guys who think of watching this on your phones, Sauron will come out of the phone and slap you across your face. Because this show is Sauron का सिजिल आएगा और तुमको मारेगा, because this show deserves to be watched on the biggest screen that is available in your home.
Correct.
And also with friends, because it's like,
के दरवाजे पे खटखट और बोलो अंकल आप
आओ इधर आओ भाई, Rings of Power आया, सब लोग साथ में मिलके देखते हैं. Because for all the fans, like the older generation, for example, Baba, who were around during Tolkien's time, for them
during the first age,
during the first age, for us it is straight up nostalgia, right? Because the last movie came out in 2003, right? You had the Hobbits and stuff come after that, but the last Return of the King came in 2003, and after that, I remember when I watched the trailer, bro, I had gone for the trailer launch. And you should have seen the fanfare, like hardcore fans. मैं बात कर रहा हूँ और मेरे को goosebumps आ रहे हैं, as they always come. It is full of nostalgia, right? You want to know what happened before the Lord of the Rings trilogy, what happened in the second age of Middle Earth. And for all of us fans who are watching there together, मतलब हम लोग वो same trailer कुछ 5-6 बार देखा, bro, अलग-अलग language में देखा. And each time you watch it, there are small things you pick out, and this is just in the trailer. So from that to coming and watching the first episode was just phenomenal.
And at this point, I would like to say that if you've not watched it, you should go watch it and then come back, because there is a chance that there might be slippage of spoilers. Unintentional slippage of spoilers. So,
like, one big spoiler is that this show is amazing. So हमने पहले ही बता दिया है. Okay, so don't get surprised by how amazing it is because we've already told you that that it's amazing.
But what's thing is, you might still be amazed about the amazingness of the amazing.
Yeah, so that's amazing.
But you know something, like the thing that I was looking at it, the thing that I was thinking about while I was looking at it, and Bhava, I want to ask you this because you've directed stuff and things like that, right?
No, I have not directed stuff like this.
No, clearly.
In my green screen, the hair cutouts are not proper.
but like just from like a cinematic point of view, right? Like there are in this, while you're watching it, right, you feel like pressing pause so many times just to admire the thing that is being, just the way they captured some of these images.
Absolutely.
Like it's so beautiful to just look at it. Like you could take a printout of that screen and you could hang it on your wall, dude. It's cinematically
and it will be a great artwork, which is what I'm actually called a great idea. Since my house is just getting done up, you never know, I might just take a screenshot and blow it up and put it at the back, because every frame in this show
looks gorgeous.
It is just gorgeous.
When I also like that, like even I like that the expanse, in the first episode, especially when they've taken you from, you know, place to place to place to place, it's done so, it's done really well. To also to give you geographical context. Correct. It's not just the camera moving from, you know, somewhere to the Northlands. Like it's not just that. When you get there, you also see, there's also a lot of, like, if you are, this is one of those things that Varun was talking about. If you know what the Lord of the Rings is, there's a lot of like really great foreshadowing. And I think that they knew that there are fans out there. And so there's a lot of great foreshadowing. Like when you see the land of the North, you know, but when you come to the South, because there is a little dissonance in this episode, because I mean in this series, because it is the second age and Sauron hasn't still done, you know, the thing that he's supposed to do.
Also, can I tell you one foreshadowing already?
Yeah.
The biggest foreshadowing is how much the tourism of New Zealand is going to go up again.
No, but does
it look beautiful?
But you know what? Peter Jackson has done nothing to do with it, but they still shot it in New Zealand only. What?
I don't know where
nothing else looks shot. More Middle Earthy than New Zealand.
No, but Baba, to talk about your point, you know, for new fans of the show, people who are just going to start watching it, I mean, you know, because fantasy is such a daunting genre in itself, right? Because it's got very little to do with currently kya ho raha hai, right? The names are confusing, the geography might be confusing, but what I think the first episode does beautifully is establishes, like, so, you know, now you're in Valinor, right, where the elves stay. Now elves move from there, they go to fight Morgoth and his army in Middle Earth. You can see that progression going in. When Galadriel is going to the northern wastelands, you know, that map wise it's shown. So for you sitting at home, you know, अच्छा ये इधर है, इधर बीच में Sundering Sea है, इधर ये है, ऊपर ये है, ऐसा है, इधर ये लोग रहते हैं, इधर ये लोग ऐसे करते हैं. And because it's a setup episode, you get such clear-cut definitions of where is what, who does what are their interpersonal relationships, and that can get confusing for people. But the way they have explained it, it's very easy to understand. You don't have to be like.
Yeah, and what I like also in the first episode is that they've not shied away from battle. You know, in the first episode, they've been able to pack so much in, and almost if you think about it, it's like the first episode of this is the end of age of the first age, right? Like before you go into the second age, there is a sense of it before you come in. For first stage, to dikhane ka to impossibility hai. There is that folklore that's told as you sort of come to it.
So
right?
For example, you know, you always known as Sauron, right? A big bad is Sauron, but then you also find out that there is a bigger bad than Sauron, from where Sauron got his strength and his army and all of that, which is Morgoth, right? Wo tera main villain hai. Uske baad Sauron the Dark Lord comes in, right? They are trying to take over everything, cover the world in absolute darkness. So the elves decide that, okay, we are now going to go and try and defeat this. And that war goes on for centuries. Right? If I had to explain in one line, there's a beautiful line that they've used in the episode, which sort of encapsulate what is going to happen in this series. And that is that evil does not sleep.
Yeah.
It awaits for a moment of complacency. it waits, it gathers the strength, it gathers the army to eventually attack in that one moment of complacency that comes in, which I think perfectly tells you what the series is going to be about, which is
and
which
it's a
is
great
brilliant.
parable, and it's almost a great parable for the world also. No, like, it's just that
Correct.
like
Correct.
evil awaits.
No,
Absolutely.
in fact, that is one of the wonders of what is known as high fantasy, right? So there's a very interesting distinction between these two genres of fantasy. So one is high fantasy, one is low fantasy. So high fantasy is what Lord of the Rings is, which is that it takes place in a completely different world to whatever is our world, and it has magical creatures, it has a hero's journey, all of that stuff. And then you have low fantasy, which is set in our world. So what's interesting about high fantasy is that you get to talk about the themes that exist in our world, but it feels fresher and it gets to you faster because it's removed.
Yeah. So which is what a big part of the Lord of the Rings fandom comes from, right? If you watch the original trilogy, the original, which is now the next one, in that so many real world issues, problems, stories are covered, that once you sit down and start matching, you're like, dude, how are they writing like that? And I think this already gives you the flavor of that coming through. Just in the first episode.
Also, you know what was very interesting? Like, you brought up Morgoth. And what I found very interesting was because when you first meet Sauron in the Lord of the Rings, he's like this badass, massive, insanely powerful villain. It's very interesting to also know that he also started as an intern somewhere.
As an intern, correct. Even evil में you have to take training. ऐसा थोड़ी है कि सीधा evil बन सकता है.
क्योंकि Sauron भी कभी henchman था. You know, is that he was also serving a darker, bigger, more eviler lord, and you know that happened. So, but
and that lord is saying आजकल के evil इन लोगों को कुछ आता ही नहीं है यार, काम ही नहीं करते. Like, it just goes down.
No, but come on, now that we're talking about Sauron, you know, when one of the most beautiful things about fantasy is they always have a voiceover play, and you have visuals of stuff that is happening before that, right? And there's that build-up that happens towards Sauron, that somewhere there was a darker, evil lord gathering his army, this, that, and you see that reveal of Sauron. You still don't see faces, nothing, you see a silhouette, but just that silhouette is so powerful that you're like, bhai, jaldi dekha, mere ko bhi
but that's also the power of setting up everything for that. Like, it's all built to reveal that person, and then it's thing. So it's genuinely well crafted. It's well told. I think the scenes, like Kautuk, to bring up what you were saying, just like that expanse in every shot, the way they've been able to manage all the worlds looking different, all the worlds feeling different, and in that sense of foreshadowing, you know that the North Wastelands are not necessarily going to be, that they're treacherous. I'm trying to stumble upon this very carefully as I say it, but
so can I tell you something? So the part that you're mentioning, Baba, the Northern Wastelands, when this is the part where Galadriel has gone to this, she's seeking Sauron, and she's reached this one particular place, and what happens next, right? Now, if you see the build-up of that scene,
correct,
you'll realize that it has been like, you can see the exact textbook horror framing. Right. And the reason you can see that, and I was very happy to see this, was the director of the first episode is J.A. Bayona. Okay, who is a horror director.
Correct.
His past was in horror, and he's also done Jurassic Park, Fallen Kingdom. So he's a horror director, which is very, very interesting, and that's a very interesting choice for something like this, because you can really see how he brings that part of it to certain scenes. And
I'm not even surprised, Kautuk, that you pointed that out, because that's literally, like, if you look at this world, right, the Rings of Power, you have the elves, you have the Harfoots, you have the realms of men and all of that. And in the midst of all of these, you have these creatures, right? Really big evil creatures. For example, in the Northern Wastelands, you have the Snow Troll, right? Where Galadriel and her army of elves are going to sort of make sure that there are no orcs that remain, that Sauron is actually defeated, which is a big question mark, right? Is Sauron defeated? Is he there? Is he lurking? What is happening? So after centuries of war, they're trying to eliminate all the orcs and all the final signs. That's when they go to the northern wastelands. They're walking through those caves. That shot when the snow troll is shown is beautiful, and only a good horror director will know how to bring that out.
No, and he also sets it up. You remember when they're walking away, there's a hand that just moves. And the setup of, is this Sauron or is this an orc? And then the classic flip of, it's neither, bro. It's
Dude, that entire sequence where you see, like, I mean, Galadriel, obviously, who Kate Blanchett played in Lord of the Rings, this is her early time, right? You see how good the elves are at warfare or just fighting in general, because that entire fight sequence between Galadriel and the snow troll, it is beautiful. It was beautiful because it's just this lone woman fighting this ginormous creature.
No, and it's also,
and it's so slickly done. It is so slickly done.
There's a certain amount of confidence saying to kya hai, bro? Like, what are you? Like, you know, I mean, the fact that he comes, he's throwing people around and this, that, and the other, but then it starts off with, you know, one of her soldiers holding up that sword for her to climb on, and she knows exactly what she's doing, right? Like, classic. Chal, okay, check.
नहीं, लेकिन उतना सब करने के बाद भी स्नो ट्रोल मरता नहीं है, फिर वो एंड में आता है, she just takes a knife.
चल ना, अभी खत्म करना, it's that.
Also, you know, there's one historical parallel. So in that sort of sequence, right, where she wants to keep pursuing Sauron until the ends of the earth and when she can find him, and her companions are tired. They're like, man, enough, we need to go home. Like, we've done our part, we've gone through everything, it's been so long.
Done our part, like way beyond.
So this is by the way the exact same thing that happened to Alexander the Great. So when he reaches India, he has walked across all of Europe, fighting every single kingdom, getting to India, and then he wanted to go further. But his army was like, enough, please sir. मेरे को छुट्टी चाहिए sir, please.
बिरयानी खाते हैं, please.
But you know, this sort of narrative is that classic hero's journey, right? Where Galadriel is center focus. She knows that, she feels there's something inside her that makes her feel that no, Sauron is not gone yet. Even though everybody else around her, even the high elves or the realms of men, whoever, they all feel that this is done. There are no orcs, there are no Sauron. Everything is done and dusted. Centuries of war have happened, and there is no sign of anybody left. But that innate feeling inside Galadriel to keep going, I think that's just going to be such a beautiful narrative arc to see.
It's also because she was there for the post-mortem of her brother, no, where she saw the sigil, symbol on his body.
No, also just from a character standpoint, while, you know, you can tell, okay, this is going to develop into this. I mean, even the Harfoot world is really lovely, but like, I'm just trying to figure out, who is Theo going to turn out to be? Like, I'm very curious, because clearly somebody finding that
it's a part of a sword.
That remnant of, I was going to say remnant of Sauron memorabilia. That's the best way I can put it.
Merch.
Sauron ka merch.
Sauron ka jo merch hai. Like, clearly Theo, you get, I didn't want to say what, like, I was just trying to, but like, I'm just trying to figure who is Theo, because clearly he's going to be an important figure, just the way the Theo is set up, right? Like, I'm interested to see what his art is going to be.
Man, can I tell you something? Angsty teenagers have always been drawn to the dark side. And you are never going to change that. That's what it is. So, but that's a very intriguing thing. I really like that one conversation that Arondir, the elf who was keeping watch.
Or keeping watch in Tirahar for a good 70, 80 years.
79 years, right?
79 years, yeah.
He was keeping watch, and he has this one conversation with his superior.
Yeah.
Okay, his supervisor.
Like, you talk too much, wala.
Yeah.
I don't think. No. Not that.
No. The one where
the high tower, no?
Yeah, on
the one where he says, you know, I've watched over this land for 79 years, and now that I've been told that I'm going to leave, I just want to take one last look at it because I've grown some affection for it. And his superior reminds him about evil and about human beings. He says that So the conflict is basically this: that Arondir believes that sure they may have sided with Sauron at some point, but now the people who live here, the humans who live here, are good.
Yeah.
And his boss reminds him that we're not keeping watch on them for what they did in the past. It's what they're capable of now. And that sums up the human race. That
because that's always been the thing, right? That the most corruptible of the lot are humans.
Apan
log hai. Not the elves, not the Harfoots, none of that. And to think that the humans are the ones who had sided with Sauron, obviously that the little bit of doubt and sort of undercurrents of not trusting exists between humans and elves. And to see how that pans out, especially now that Arondir and Theo's mom, you kind of sense that they have some sort of feelings for each other.
You sense it a little more than
even Varun is tiptoeing around spoilers. But yeah, I'm super excited because just the end. Let's talk about the end as we wrap up. But like just the end of this, when you see that what's the right word? That
it's a comet that comes in.
Wait,
1 second. Let's go one before that. No, where Galadriel comes back and then she's honored by getting a ticket back to Valinor. Like, you get to live in eternal paradise. Like, and then she decides not to. That scene, it was crazy. Like the one where they're on the boat. By the way, very uncomfortable ride because they just stood the whole way through.
Dude, I swear, all the elves just stand like that on their ship.
बोट में मैं बैठता हूँ, मेरे को तो उल्टी आती है यार. ये लोग खटाक से बैठा है यार.
इसलिए तू elf नहीं है बाबा.
समझ रहा हूँ. और मैं warrior भी नहीं है.
बाबा तेरा कान दिखा जरा.
नहीं है नहीं.
हाँ नहीं बिल्कुल नहीं.
तो 5 मिनट खड़ा नहीं रह सकता वो elf पूरे boat ride पे खड़े. No, but even in that sequence, when they sort of go back or to the time when Galadriel's brother, who fought Sauron's army and who was eventually killed by Sauron, they had a very interesting conversation where they talk about, how do you know how does a ship float on water. Whereas a rock goes to the bottom, right? And he tells them that the rock is always looking down to the darkness of the depths of the seas, and it's attracted towards that, whereas the ship always looks up towards the light. Right? So you would think that Galadriel, when she eventually is going back to Valinor and she's seeing the gates open and that amazing like rays of the sun popping through, you're like, of course she's going to go back, but still she decides, no, I'm not doing that.
That's also because of the thing, right? She says that, but when you're in the sea, you can the light.
You can also see the reflection.
Yeah, you can see the reflections. How do you know? And then that typical thing of the that every rule has an exception, saying that sometimes you don't know, right? And you will know it in your gut. You will know it instinctively. And
when that scene was playing out, right? Like it because you're seeing it from her perspective, and like she has to make this decision. So it's like, that decision, it's slowing time down for her, right? And that light is coming and she's there and she has to make a choice, right? I was just like, shit, man, like if ever there was a point where you needed sunscreen, like SPF 10,000. So
no, but just that scene especially opens up so many possibilities that are going to happen, right? Because they set it up so beautifully. What are Arondir and Theo's mom going to be doing? Because they go to the east, right? Galadriel decides not to go back to Valinor, jumps into the sea. You know that Sauron's blade, a part of it is there in I forget the name of the place with Theo, right? Then you know that there was snow trolls and orcs and Sauron's sigil ka mark that was there in the northern wastelands. So they've set it up so beautifully that now you're like, bhai, jaldi dikhao. Mere ko janna hai ki aage kya ho raha hai.
And the final scene, like when that
comet
incident takes place and you come and you see that thing lying on that thing.
Yeah, so we won't tell you exactly what it is, but it's a thing that flies in the air, drops down on Middle Earth. There's a lot of fire and there's something that is seen. We don't know what that is, but that's the beauty.
We actually don't know because I've not seen the second episode yet.
That's why this is only the first episode review. So we are as excited to find out what is happening, which we will in due course of time. But this was only the review of the first episode. This is going to be a continuous series where we are going to be reviewing every single Rings of Power episode that comes out. Thankfully, Prime Video has been very sweet, and as a nice gift, they have given us 2 episodes. So go watch the first episode, come watch the review. Let's get excited. Let's get hyped up so that we watch every other episode every week and come back and chat about it. So both episodes are available on Prime Video. Go watch it right now, because trust me, there is nothing like this currently on TV. The scale, the genre, the actors, the team, the VFX. I mean, it is just absolutely beautiful. So there's going to be a total of 8 episodes that are come out. 2 are already out on Prime Video. So please go watch it right now, and then join us every week as we review the most anticipated epic grand show on TV right now, The Rings of Power. And let us know in the comments what your favorite scenes were. You know, what you think is going to happen. Any fan theories that you may have, and let's have a great time discussing the show. So yeah, that's it from the first episode review of The Rings of Power.
At some point, we should give this a name also.
Yeah, it's called
the review of the Rings of Power.
The review of the Rings of Power. You will know the name in the caption and
the powerful
and the
review of the Rings of Power.
Yeah. So go watch it right now. Let us know in the comments. And thank you for watching this episode. We will see you again next week with the review of episode 2 of Rings of Power.
Correct. That's right.
Bye bye. Tada. See you.